Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered as usual by STN Sports. And Jason, Chucky, of course, as I mentioned in Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook, we both have our dancing shoes on because it is time to go dancing. It's tournament time. There's some big surprises that got in, some teams that we thought would get in that didn't get in. There's a few regions that are really strong and one that's a little weak, which isn't a big surprise. Four number ones, Auburn, Duke, Florida, and Houston, I think, are all deserving of the number one seed. Auburn maybe struggled a little bit down the stretch a bit. Florida has been red hot right now. Maybe a surprise when you look at, like, where North Carolina, the fact that they got in is a surprise, but where they're seated, UConn, Kansas, all teams, when we put this up almost a year ago, were in the top 10 now, who basically aren't where we normally see these big blue blood schools. But what surprises you the most? Or I know we're both excited about it, but let's just dive right into it and see what.
Yeah, I mean,
what we can talk about.
obviously, all the talk of the Sunday and the matchups comes out was who got in that wasn't supposed to get in, who got left out. And expanding to the 68 teams was supposed to eliminate some of that, but you still have these teams that are out there. West Virginia and Indiana, for me, are the kind of maybe two snubs that should have gone in.
The two big wins that Indiana had, I think when you look at, they had the home win against Michigan State, and then at Purdue they had a win. I mean, that's really surprising to me that they didn't get in.
Yeah, so, I mean, West Virginia, the argument's there. Obviously, everybody's talking about North Carolina and the chairman being part of the committee and all that type of stuff. And North Carolina just doesn't have that large group of quality wins.
Do you think the committee made a lane violation by putting North Carolina in the tournament?
They did win, I think, 8 of their last 10 games down the stretch. They played Duke very, very competitively in one of those games.
Duke was shorthanded in that game.
Maybe enough during the tournament to push things out. And they're still going to, be a tough out. I actually think they got a really nice draw going up against San Diego State and then going into Mississippi. I think there's a winnable game for them. And again, North Carolina will have that chip on their shoulder with everybody bringing them up as they shouldn't have gone in, that maybe they're a team that you should target to maybe win a couple games and pull some upsets because they're playing with that chip on their shoulder. The other thing for me when I look at the bracket is finding the overall balance of what the committee did and seeing where teams got seeded, what regions they got put in, and where there's balance and where there's imbalance. And we talk about which regions are the toughest, which regions are the easiest, who has the easiest path, and most importantly, when you're filling out your brackets, who you should have confidence in and moving forward, and where you should pick those upsets and maybe take a chance.
Look for some value
before you start doing your handicapping and actual betting on the games. So one of the things for me was just going through and counting the top 16 teams as we went into the weekend and where they're seated. And the reason I'm only talking about the top 16 is once we start to normally get from 15 to 25 in the top 25, those are teams that we normally see based on whether they win or lose during the week. They fall out of that. They fall out of that top 25, or then when they have a great week of winning, they win some teams. They come back into the top 25. But normally, in the top 15 teams in the country, they're pretty much staying in that top 20, and they're remaining in the top 15 in the country. So when we look at the brackets, and I'm going to expand it to top 16 teams because we have 4 regions that we're talking about. 4 regions divided by 16 teams. We get 4 teams in each region. So when we talk about top 16 teams in the country, each bracket should have 4 of the top 16 teams in the country. The Auburn bracket has 5 of those such teams. The Florida bracket, the West Regional, has 5 of those top 16 teams. The
Midwest,
Houston bracket, the Midwest, perfect on pace with 4 of those top 16 teams. And voila, we find the bracket that seems to have the easiest path. The Duke East Regional has Duke, the number 1, and Alabama, the number 2, and those are the only 2 teams in the top 6, ranked in the top 16 in that East region. So the East region, maybe some more upsets in that region. Maybe it's a Duke-Alabama path, but look for maybe some upsets within the region there.
And it does give Duke an opportunity. We know they're a little bit banged up to get healthy and maybe not play great their first couple of games and have a chance to really advance through the Sweet 16 because of the region they're in.
Yeah, and you asked the question, how does that happen? And so we have Wisconsin, who lost to Michigan in the Big Ten final. They're the 18th ranked team in the country. They are the number 3 seed. And Arizona, who is the number 4, and by a power rating standpoint, Arizona could be easily a top 12 team in the country. However, they are not even ranked in the top 25 in the AP poll, and they were seeded number 4. So Arizona secures a very good seed from that standpoint.
I think when you look at it overall, too, Jay, I mean, so much dominance from the SEC with the number of teams that they got in the tournament. Big Ten,
record of 14 teams from the SEC
Big Ten,
in the tournament. The
Big
last
Ten
time,
8, Big 12 7, and Big East 5.
Big East had 11 was the previous record. Now, again, conference realignment has done this, and the number of teams that are in the SEC, amazing. But there are actually teams in the SEC with a higher ranking in the big tournament, the big dance, than they got in their own conference tournament, which is absolutely crazy to know that we have 14 teams coming out of the SEC in the rankings that they got. One of the things that I looked at from a pure ranking standpoint, and this is going to take just a second for me to explain where teams got kind of overseeded or underseeded. And so I'm going to use 3 teams to explain how they were perfectly seeded. And I'll start with Michigan State, who got a number 2 seed. We have 4 regions within the tournament, so they are a top 8 team in the country. Number 2 seed times 4 regions puts them in the top 8, meaning Michigan State should be seeded somewhere between 4 and 8.
Right, yeah.
5 and 8 based on that ranking. They are the number 7 seed in the country.
Right.
Perfect ranking for Michigan State. Memphis is the number 5 seed in the tournament. Times 4 regions puts them as a top 20 team. Again, 16 to 20. They are ranked 16.
Coincidentally enough, though, with Memphis being a lower seed, they're actually a dog in the game to Colorado State.
Yeah, one of the weird situations where we have the dog. Again, they are ranked number 16, so they are appropriately, perfectly seeded. Marquette, number 7 seed in the tournament, times 4 regions, puts them as a top 28 team in the country. They are ranked number 25, perfect seeding for Marquette. And I'm going to lead with the worst one of all. Kind of makes me want to throw up in my mouth, wondering what the committee was looking at when they ranked Louisville. Maybe they got through their rankings and they said, oh, crap, we forgot Louisville. Let's not go back and try and figure that out. Let's just throw them in here. But Louisville got a number 8 seed in the Big Dance. Times 4 regions puts them as a top 32 team in the country, 29 to 32. However, they were ranked 13th in the country heading into this week. And went back and found a tweet. The seed of the AP polls, number 13 team, entering Selection Sunday. Going back to 2012, the number 13 seed got a 3, a 3, a 5, a 3, a 5, a 4, a 3, a 3, a 3, a 4, and a 3.
Never worse than 5.
Never worse than 5 in the last 13 years. And Louisville gets an 8. Talk about playing with a chip on your shoulder. Louisville Cardinals they should be a 3 to a 5 seed. They're misappropriately placed as an 8. Look for Louisville potentially to perform, we'll call them upsets as an 8 seed, but Louisville is a vastly underranked team here from the seeding standpoint. Strangely enough, coming out of the ACC with Louisville, Clemson, a number 5 seed in the tournament, puts them as a top 20 team, meaning they should have got kind of 17 to 20.
Right.
They're the number 10 ranked team in the country. They should have gotten, you could argue that maybe they squeeze out a 2, a 3, or a 4, but they slip to a 5. So we have 2 ACC teams that look misappropriately ranked. And St. Mary's, we see the huge upset to Gonzaga in the final there.
Right.
Didn't look good in the final here in the West Coast Conference final, played in Las Vegas. They get a number 7 seed, times 4, puts them as a top 28 team in the country. Again, 25 to 28, and they're ranked number 19th in the country. So again, St. Mary's slips. And you ask, how does this happen? Who leapfrogged them? And who got great seeds that aren't ranked? And I go back to, I talked about Arizona. Arizona got a 4 seed, meaning they're a top 16 team in the country. They're not even ranked in the top 25 in the rankings heading into this week. But the big one for me was the Big Ten. And the Big Ten got a lot of love here from the committee. And we'll start with number 5, Oregon. They got a 5 seed. Times 4 regions should be a top 20 team, meaning 17 to 20. However, they're the 23rd ranked team in the country, so maybe about 6 spots ranked 6 spots early for Oregon. Purdue got a number 4 seed, so they should be a top 16 team in the country, meaning 13 to 16. They're the 20th ranked team in the country. So again,
you think it has to do with the fact that the Big Ten hasn't played great over the last 10 years in the tournament?
No, because this is giving them a better seed than what they've got. If they haven't played good, the Big Ten haven't played good, maybe you seed them a little worse, but these teams are getting an advantage being ranked higher than their rankings. And the biggest one of all was Wisconsin. They pull a 3 seed, meaning they are a top 12 team in the country, 9 to 12, and they're ranked 18th in the country. So again, maybe they took Louisville's 3 seed. Purdue took Louisville's 4 seed. Oregon took Louisville's 5 seed, and we haven't even brought up Clemson. Maybe Wisconsin took Clemson's seed. So again, I think Louisville and Clemson some seeding issues there, and the Big Ten, Oregon, Purdue, some good seeding. So take that for what it's worth. I think there's some higher seeds there. Maybe look for some of those upsets in those rankings. I do think Arizona is kind of one of the teams. They're a 13.5 point favorite over Akron. Again, pulling that 4 seed. They were one of the ones for me that looks like a big upset, a sleeper team for me. Not that I think Akron can go win it all. But I do think Akron, a very, very good basketball team, could go upset Arizona. Again, it might struggle with the pace of play, might struggle with the size. But again, when you see these small conference teams that just know how to win basketball games, Akron's that one of those teams for me. And I love them plus the 14 points.
I think we've seen it over the last several years that there's so much more parity that you look at some of these small schools that have had kids that have been there 3 and 4 years, maybe kids 5 and 6 years from the transfer portal. And it's evident, I think, even by the point spread. You have some games that are, a few games that are big point spreads, but everything seems to be a lot tighter. And I think you can go through almost every region and look for value in the South. I mean, UC San Diego as a 12 seed, maybe even a Yale as a 13 seed, possible upset teams. I think when you look at, I wrote these down as I kind of went through it yesterday. Liberty as a 12 seed, possible upset candidate. So I think there are some value when you really kind of dive into it and look at it and look at these teams that are kind of more senior laden against some of these big schools that have kids that are one and done. And I think that's what makes the tournament so much fun now.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at things, I think I brought up the East Regional and talking about that was Duke and Alabama. I think that the Vanderbilt-St. Mary's matchup, I think Vanderbilt's a live 10 seed in that matchup. Already brought up how Wisconsin got such a great seed with their 3. And again, I'm a big fan of Wisconsin, but I just think they're misappropriately seeded. Montana, a 14 seeds live there. BYU versus VCU. BYU 17 in the country gets the 6 seed. I think VCU potentially live there against the Cougars. And again, that's the same region that has Akron and Arizona. So I think, again, the East region, I think there's a lot of those underdog seeds that can pull some upsets. And you talked about those 8-9 seeds. We got some 8-9 matchups that we got 2-time defending champion, the UConn Huskies, pulling an 8 seed. What a scary situation for Florida Gators, knowing that they might have to go into the 2-time defending champs, the UConn Huskies. And Houston draws the Zags. Gonzaga dropping all the way down to an 8 seed. And again, when we talk about power ratings, we talk about making point spreads. Gonzaga is a top 12 team in the country when you put together a power rating and from a point spread ranking. So a scary part of the bracket there for the Houston Cougars potentially going into the Zags. And then I don't have to tell you again, I thought Louisville, probably the worst seeded team in the entire bracket, matches up against Creighton in a really tough matchup. Creighton, another very good team. Louisville, a very short favorite in that opening game, but then they're going to have to go into Auburn. So again, a very, very difficult. First, you get a terrible seed in getting the 8, and then you get even a worse job of that. You have to go into Auburn. So Louisville, a very poor seeding and a poor spot there in the bracket.
I think one of the interesting things the committee did, too, is when you look at out west, game in Providence, St. John's is a big favorite over Omaha, but if they win that game, the matchup would be Bill Self in Kansas or John Calipari in Arkansas playing Rick Pitino in St. John's. So St. John's should advance, and, man, can you imagine that matchup, Calipari and possibly Rick Pitino or Bill Self and Rick Pitino. So there's some intriguing matchups
Well,
here.
the one thing too about the West that's intriguing to me, again, we have so many powerhouse teams in the East Coast, and obviously with the SEC playing as well as they have with their great seeding that they got. Florida you have to make the argument that they're playing the best
They're
ball
playing
in the
phenomenal
entire
right now.
country
Right,
right
yep.
now, winning the SEC tournament
Yep.
and doing so in dominant fashion. And Auburn kind of losing 3 games.
They've stubbed their toe a little bit down the stretch.
And
yeah.
Duke coming into it with maybe a little bit banged up
Yep.
and the question marks for flag. So Florida, you could make the argument that the hottest team in the country, the number 1 team, and they were the 4 seed, and essentially kind of the 4 seed in the bracket here. And then they draw St. John's as the number 2, who was the number 6th seed in the country. So some power there. And then they pull the number 9 seed in the country in Texas Tech, the number 11 seed in the country in Maryland. So a very, very tough bracket from the Florida standpoint. But I do think from my standpoint, the Auburn bracket is the toughest bracket.
Yeah.
Auburn,
I would agree.
And Michigan State being the number 2, Iowa State, who is the 12 seed in the country, the number 3, Texas A&M, who we know just knocked off Auburn about a week ago, the 14th seed, and then again Louisville as the 8th seed, the number 13 team in the country, kind of throws some real imbalance into that Auburn South Regional.
I think Houston too, when you look at the Midwest, has a little bit of a clearer path to continue to go through it. I mean, you look at the matchups there. I know you have Tennessee as the number 2 seed there, Kentucky is the 3 seed, and Purdue is the 4. But I think Houston definitely has a path to move on there as well. For me, that's one of the easier regions, I think, as well.
Well, because you look at Gonzaga coming in as the 8th,
Right,
and that tough game, and I think again disrespect to the ACC in this region with Clemson getting the 5 seed as the number 10 team in the country. You could make you have that 4-5 matchup there where Clemson is the 5, Purdue is the 4. Clemson went into this week the number 10 ranked team in the country. Purdue came into this week as the number 20 ranked team in the country.
It's almost
so
flipped.
Again, that Big Ten balance that we talked about. Let alone you have Illinois in this region with Kentucky down below, and again UCLA and Gonzaga in this region as the 7 and 8, 2 teams that are not ranked in the top 25, but again get a lot of respect pulling the 7 and 8 seeds.
So it's not just about the games, guys, though. Check out the app because it is going to be flooded with props. There's going to be so many different ways to bet the tournament. Of course, all these games will be offered live on the app as well. And with this time of year, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about our signature contest, Jay, and that's Last Man Standing. It's an aggregate payout, but it's $50,000 guaranteed. Get signed up today. I mean, we know it's going to be a busy weekend. It's going to be fun. It works just like our football and pro football and college football contest. You pick one game against the STN's point spread every day. You win and you move on. $25 entry fee gets you 1, 100 gets you 4, and a 5th bonus entry free. So get signed up today.
Yeah, Chuck talked about it. Obviously on Tuesday, those first matchups will come out. Again,
the first 4 you'll have.
The Tuesday and Wednesday games are not included. It starts on Thursday. You have till Thursday at 6:00 to sign up. The sheets will be out on Tuesday, so you can see those Thursday matchups, start to turn your selections in, and then each and every morning of the tournament, those sheets will be out approximately 7 o'clock in the morning for you to bubble in your teams in and make your selections. And a lot of luck there, a lot of fun going on here. Make sure to sign up for Last Man Standing. Get in as early as possible today, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Get those signups on because Thursday will be that March Madness as everybody's trying to look there. And Chuck talked about the regions to win it all. We're going to have props galore. You're going to have player props galore. Get on the app, play the live. Really looking forward to stuff. And not only to mention the NCAA tournament, but the NIT tournament games are going to be up. The women's bracket will be out
couple
there.
Of baseball games.
Turn your alarms on for 3 a.m. As 3 a.m. tonight as we're sit here doing the show here on Monday morning. Tuesday morning, 3 a.m. Cubbies, Dodgers, and then again same thing on Wednesday morning at 3 a.m. Those will be your match of the day, so you can get that 10% odds boost. And as you get on the app, as we go through the tournament, Monster College Basketball Focus, take advantage of that 10% odds boost up to $50 beginning on Wednesday. Throughout the weekend will be all college basketball matches of the day. Take advantage of that free $50 on that 10% odds boost.
And if you're not signed up, you can still sign up and the No Worry Wager. We're still offering the $50 No Worry Wager. So get signed up. We know it's a busy time. The atmosphere in our books, though, I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but been doing it for a number of years as Jay has. But outside of that big football game that's played in February, I mean, the atmosphere in our books, it's loud, it's fun, it's exciting, it's contagious. I mean, it echoes throughout the casino. You just hear the crowd erupt in here. Games start early in the day, they're till late at night. And if you happen to have that David against Goliath matchup, and David is alive and well, I mean, just the crowd shifts knowing that hey, this big favorites might not win, they might not cover, but there's a chance for a huge upset here. That's what makes the tournament so great, I think, is the Cinderella stories and just the atmosphere in the book. If you haven't experienced it, even if you're playing on the app, come on in and just enjoy it because it is crazy fun.
Yeah, come and watch the games with 300 of your closest friends and
root with them or against them.
Yeah, you start to get the rooting interest, and a lot of it, it's the props. First team to score 20, you'll hear a roar in here when a team scores their 10th point or their 20th point. And you're like, what's going on? It's because we got a prop on a team to score the first 20 points, and that's what that group of people may be cheering for. And you talked about it when those underdogs have a chance to win. It gets
louder.
It's everybody, regardless of whether they have a bet on the game or not. Everybody's cheering for those sleepers and that Cinderella story to put the slipper on for this opening weekend. Thursday and Friday, we're always looking for those upsets, and they're a lot of fun when they happen.
We've both been doing it for a number of years, and it's one of the most fun times for us as well. We love spending time out here in the crowd and kind of talking to you guys, and we know it'll be electric in here. And like I said, just this becomes the focal point. There's so many of you guys and guests that come out every single year, and you only come out to experience what we have to offer for the tournament. So come on out, have some fun. It's going to be exciting. Do your homework again. Look at some of these schools that have kids that have been there for maybe kids that are in their 5th or 6th year. Again, some of these big schools that have a lot of kids that might are only there for 1 year. This is when the tournament really gets interesting, and we've seen over the last couple of years some smaller schools make a little bit of a run because they're senior laden. So for Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. Coming out and see us not only at Red Rock, but any one of our racing sports books, and have some fun. And good luck during the tournament. I hope you guys all have your dancing shoes on.